Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Brett.
Good to see you.
I'm good, man. How about you?
Good. How's your week today?
Yes. It's going good, man. It's going good.
I got back from Carlsbad, California, where I was at an event.
San Diego-ish.
Stay classy, San Diego. It's awesome.
That's great.
I don't like traveling anymore for business.
No, there's nothing for it.
But it's nice when it actually turns out pretty great, you know? So it was a really pleasant surprise, but glad to be back in the confines of my little studio where I feel like I can control everything.
I know how that goes. Yeah. It's also nice just when things don't get canceled, which I think is a big thing with travel, I'm told right now is just had some friends go down to Palm Springs and one of their flights got canceled mid trip. So that's not great.
I felt pretty lucky. Our return flight was delayed an hour or something like that, but otherwise it was smooth sailing. So
there you go. That sounds great.
It's strange to be out there in the world.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about employee experience and PwC.
Yeah. This was like big numbers. So just like this big, headline grabbing number from PwC. And so I'll give a little context there. Their U.S. chair basically announced that they're going to be investing $2.4 billion with a B dollars in employee experience over the next 3 years in their U.S. with their U.S. workforce. And it's kind of a crazy number. I think it was obviously they're accountants, so I'm assuming they know how the numbers work, but they also just know like this will be an impactful number that people will actually talk about. So they did get some great media coverage on it, but they basically they're kind of using the investment across 4 different areas of the employee experience. I'd love to talk about all of these and just kind of how we're thinking about employee experience here at the Star Conspiracy. So I think the first area was well-being. The second is total rewards. Third is employee development. And then fourth is sort of an alumni program. They call it always a PwCer. And so they're basically going to continue to sort of go around those 4 things for the next 3 years and see how that goes for them.
Yeah. And I love and hate so much about this. I think it's such a great conversation to have. But one of the lines that I picked up on from one of the articles, because they got tons of coverage for this, and it's a big announcement. I'm glad it's out there. But in one of the letters I read, it says, "I'm so proud to announce that PwC is launching a reimagined people experience called My Plus that is centered around choice and flexibility and tailor-made to further support development, well-being, purpose, and personal ambition. It's our biggest and boldest reimagination of our people experience. And over the next 3 years, we'll invest $2.4 billion to bring this personalized experience to life. My Plus will provide our people the power to build personalized careers, from choosing the types of assignments they work on, to the hours they work, to where they work and the benefits they need. Our commitment, the largest in professional services to date, lays the foundation for a future where our people can make customer-like choices supported by consumer-grade technology to build a personalized career experience at every stage of their life."
Yep.
I mean, if that doesn't make like every employee experience software vendor, in the world go like, call PwC immediately, even though it's probably too late.
It's way too late.
Yeah. But you can't imagine a more like validating statement around the segment of, the the integrated platform level of employee experience that's combining, programs with technology. I mean, it's an outright validation of, kind of the employee experience market, which is a pretty significant thing.
It's huge. Yeah, I mean, let's talk about what we like and what's kind of just stood out as maybe bad about this. Because I think there's both sides of that. I mean, I think one, I think on the good side, I think you read through it. I mean, I think one of the things, just talked to CHROs and CEOs about over the last, few years is just how much personalization means, and like actual personalization, not like your name here sort of personalization that we see in software, but like actual, like thinking about people in the phase of their life and the phase of their career in the context of where and how they're working and the types of careers they're doing. There's millions of permutations along those lines. And so thinking about the types of benefits they want, thinking about like what types of well-being programs are going to be most vital. I think PwC has done a good job of saying like things like how much you work is on the table. I think that's something that obviously a lot of folks in the Big Four accounting firm is going to be a little bit of a culture shock there. And I think that's part of the negatives too. I'll talk about it in a little bit, but I think the the personalization, the flexibility thing that they talk about from that perspective is like really interesting to me, just because on top of just like having lots of program offerings, it's also just a matter of and having the investment there too. It's obviously just like trying to get people to actually use this, especially from professional services background, knowing how busy and how sort of like busy and hours and FaceTime and everything that goes with those big firms have been such a big piece of how they work for their entire existence, right? So I think that's really great. I mean, we could knit and choose on some of the programs that they're choosing to invest in, but I think overall it's a really interesting approach from that perspective. The other thing I really like about it is like, I mean, PwC doesn't they don't fuck around with numbers, right? So like this isn't a guess by them. This is like they've done the math. Like, so I like that from just the storytelling perspective about validating the market. Is like if PwC can say, yeah, we're going to put 2.4 billion, which I think I put across their 40,000 folks here in the U.S. It's like $60,000. I don't know if that's a year or over the program. So that's a lot of money just to say like, not necessarily into comp, which is going to be another thing for them, going forward. But, from that perspective, like knowing just sort of all the very much, they've been very much the shareholder, experience folks for such a long time, knowing that somebody can sort of just say, look, even if you don't believe it, we sort of made the math work on this, and it makes a ton of sense. I don't know, what do you think?
Well, it's 2.4 billion over 3 years, right?
3 years,
so
yeah.
That's the first tranche. I've got a lot of good things to say before I start getting, mean, about it. But, first of all, I think it's incredibly validating for, not just the field, of employee experience and all the people who have been working hard to come up with solutions and move in that direction, and all the practitioners who have been, trying to come up with their own frameworks and understandings of employee experience. And, I always imagine these people just kind of standing out on a mountain by themselves saying, employee experience is important, listen to me. And so I'm really, excited about that aspect of it, where, basically you have a company from, one of the oldest, most traditional segments of kind of the knowledge worker kind of world, coming out and doing something really unexpected, which is saying we believe in employee experience and we believe in flexibility and choice, and we're putting our money where our mouth is and we're investing in it. I love that. I love that the amount of money. I love that it's tied specifically to employee experience. And I love that it's coming from a big accounting firm. And I think, all of that, like if you just go back to, like Geoffrey Moore's technology adoption lifecycle, I think most people would have considered PwC probably as a skeptic or, a laggard in terms of adopting concepts like employee experience. And here they are really, kind of the front edge of the, mainstream adoption of employee experience, which is really exciting. But I think it's going to pressure other people to follow suit. And I think it's going to accelerate, kind of the growth of, our discourse around employee experience and what it really means. So I really like that. I really like that they have a very clear vision of, flexibility and choice in terms of the 4 pillars that they chose: well-being, total rewards, development, and, always a PwCer, which is their alumni program.
Yeah.
Getting into the specific, kind of programs that they're offering, I like a lot of them. I think at the same time, it shows how far we have to go. That, basically PwC is lauding themselves for, offering some things that, to me are just like, moving an inch on the ruler instead of, the whole foot. So, I've got some things to say there, but mostly, I'm pretty positive about it. I'm curious before we start, I'm going to tear this apart, because I think, things like this should be torn apart, but yeah. I'm curious to get your opinion, before we go there. How much of this do you think is employer branding? How much of it is marketing? How much of it's a good story, versus, how much of it's a true commitment to reimagining the employee experience based on not only what we've learned in the past 2 years, but what we've learned leading up to the past 2 years?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's a good question. I think, from my perspective, I think a lot of it is on the employer brand side of things, and they've been, to PwC's credit, this is kind of it's not coming out of the blue. So this has been a consistent sort of refrain from them, at least over the last couple of years. And even some like things that they've done a little bit before the pandemic, they were inching this way, although like very slowly, as you can imagine. Like, I mean, there was no time crunch on them to make this sort of switch. So I think a lot of it is employer branding. I mean, like that in the very big EB sort of way, which is, when you're looking at people leaving that organization in particular, and like, I mean, you think of, somebody who's been with PwC for 10 years, if they leave the organization because they're not, they just have, a garbage schedule, and they've realized through the pandemic that they can't work that anymore. You're losing a lot. I think they realize that. So I think a lot of it is just like, imagining not just, what they're losing from that perspective, but what they could gain from just getting sort of people reignited there. But a lot of it is on the branding side of things. And so, but to your point, I think, a lot of these programs, and we'll jump into this because it's just kind of crazy to me. Like some of these are just like, what are, what I appreciate. And so what I will say, last really, really positive thing, I really appreciate that they rolled this out along the brand of employer experience, right? So employee experience. So I really appreciate that. And I kind of put it in the same, not in the exact same bucket, but the same sort of way that, Microsoft launched Viva, now almost, I think it was a year ago. And like, we've been talking about flow of work. And like Microsoft does it, but it's like, it's not 100% great. And like, I mean, but like an ecosystem of things will come out of that. I think, to your point, I think what this will do is this will sort of have an ecosystem impact on other firms within the Big Four. You'll see EY do the same. You'll see like Deloitte, start to talk about this. You'll see one-upsmanship there. Yeah. So I think all that's good. So but I mean, I think a lot of it is just like trying to like stem the tide. And a lot of that is driven not necessarily by meaningful advancements in these programs, although I think there are some things in there. But also, I'm just like, please do not leave our organization.
Yeah. My bullshit detector is always Reddit. And so whenever, I read something like this, the first thing I do is go out to Reddit and see how like employees are responding to it.
That's right.
And, there's I think that there was a problem that needed to be fixed, and it needed to be fixed in a very public way. I think that, you and I just got out of a great meeting where we were talking about the difference between faith and trust, in the context of, navigating difficult times or, turnarounds or whatever. This appears to be, a turnaround, kind of situation for their employee experience. And, at this stage, people may have some faith that, that these things are going to have a significant impact on their work experience or their employee experience. But the question is, can they build trust by actually delivering on it, not just hitting their milestones and, their stated goals, but actually having an impact on what the employee experience is like, for the folks at PwC. And so diving down into the details, I would just, start by saying, I think this is probably 70% marketing right now, and 30% reality. It's probably in that, multiple $billion budget number, sweeping up, kind of things that were already kind of planned, but just thematically relating them and being able to roll out a big number and put the employee experience headline on it. But, a lot of good stuff starts with marketing. and then the question is, does it get delivered on? So let's take each one of these.
Yep.
And then, I want to come circle back at some point to whether or not this is actually employee experience, because I would make the argument that this is not employee experience, that this focuses on a couple, really one subdomain, maybe a couple, but not nearly all of the subdomains of employee experience that are important from a holistic perspective. But the areas that they are stated, that they've stated that they're focused on under the employee experience banner, number one is well-being. And I'm curious if you had the same reaction that I did to well-being. So this is not, a program PowerPoint presentation where they said everything that they're doing in well-being. Right, We're just pulling from multiple articles reporting on it. But I don't really see anything in here, with the exception of, I think, access to therapy. No, that wasn't even under well-being. I don't see anything in here that's actually well-being. And the things that I did see that they were calling attention to were kind of not that great, in my opinion. So I want to make sure that I'm reading this right. So first of all, they claim that they were the first major professional services firm to offer and formalize the option to work virtually to all 40,000 client service professionals. Yep. Reddit tells a very different story than that, by the way. Reddit tells the story of like, we're supposed to be able to do this, but these are the consequences of actually doing it. And so, we all know that, that's just a corner of the, internet social media universe. And that's not an active dialogue among all employees, but there's some, interesting stuff there if anybody wants to go out and check it out. But it says, in the first year of our transformation, we'll continue to expand upon our flexibility options from reduced schedules. So this is under well-being. I kind of see the connection there. Yep. 20% pay leaves of absence. So that, that was the first one where I was like, what? So just to be clear, they're talking about if you need to take a leave of absence, we're going to pay you 20% of your salary while you're on your leave of absence. Is that the way that you read that?
Yeah. Other than, I think further down, they talk about like parental leave, which is like a specific carve out. But for, I think, general leave of absences, they talk about, keeping 20% of your pay while you're on that leave.
So that, I don't even understand that. It's like, talk about half measures. The only thing worse than a half measure is a 20% measure, And so what in your experience, what would fall under a leave of absence? So they've got that carve out for maternity and paternity leave, but what would fall under a leave of absence in your mind?
Yeah, I think, I think from our perspective, anything that isn't parental leave. So like, I think, you're taking care of your own health, taking care of the health of family member, caretaking. Obviously elder care is a big one. Those are probably the biggest ones. I mean, I think you might have some, traditional like sabbatical types of leaves that might fall under that, where it's not necessarily like a health or anything along those lines, but just some like very extended time off.
Yeah.
I'm actually like more concerned with like the second part of this like whole like well-being thing, which has nothing to do with well-being at all. But yeah, I mean, I guess so. I'd say just like a very small percentage of this is like, okay, so personal, so leave, getting some pay while you're on leave. Okay, that's nice, I guess. And sometimes that will be related to your own health, and maybe not something that's necessarily qualifying for like short-term or long-term disability, which should be, which should be a common thing, at least at PwC.
Yeah. So I want to get on to the next thing too, but I just gotta keep talking about this leave thing, because this leave thing drives me nuts. So I think I'm thinking about the same way you are, which is, occasionally it's going to be people taking a sabbatical.
Yeah.
So they can get 20%, pay while they're on sabbatical. It's been my experience that everyone who goes on a sabbatical comes back better,
every time.
Every time. So, just, I'm going to file that one away for a minute. And then the second point here for me is that pretty much every other leave of absence, would probably refer to something negative that's happening in that person's life, whether they need a mental health break, whether they have to take care of their parents or something like that. Right. And so could you survive on 20% of your salary? Because I couldn't survive on 20% of my salary.
Yeah, no. I mean, it would be, you'd have to be in a completely different like financial place in order to do that. And so 20% pay leave sounds good, but there's a reason why like, short-term and long-term disability like go at like 60 or 80%, is because that's just a much more feasible answer, especially if you're not, if you've got everything else taken care of, you're assuming that a spouse is probably working or that they've got other resources in place. 20% is basically a penance at that point.
Well, let's say the average salary is like $150,000 at the associate level or something like that.
Right.
We're talking about going down to $30,000 a year,
right.
Before taxes. I mean, it's almost worse than no money at all, because it might keep you from making a very important decision that you need to make. And it certainly doesn't put you in a position to come back, to PwC, like, secure in your position, grateful for, the time that you're able
Support.
to have. Yeah.
No.
I mean, we have people at the Star Conspiracy who take weeks off in a row. We have unlimited paid time off. Right. It's always a good thing. It's always a good thing. So it seems like, if anything, you'd want to double people's pay to make sure they come back, from leave, rather than cutting it to 20%. But right. So that, that didn't really like, wow me. And then, the potential to work from anywhere, even internationally, kind of, signals to me that, formalizing the option to work virtually wasn't really,
wasn't totally there.
Yeah, it wasn't totally there. Because I mean, you can either work virtually or not. Like, what does it matter where you are? Even internationally, So I don't know. But going to your point, what in here has anything to do with well-being directly?
Yeah, I don't know. Exactly. So I'm going to pull out the sentence from their press release here or from their statement here. And I'm wondering if you just have the same level of like skepticism or cynicism. I don't know exactly how to put it, but here's the sentence: making sure all time off is protected, uninterrupted, and that no vacation days go unused is also extremely important. So our leaders will be expected to support that happening. And just like all of like these closely held values that we hear about from big companies like this, it's like, oh, this is the way you guys are fucking up right now. Like, you guys aren't supporting, you guys aren't protecting time off. You're not making it, you're interrupting it all the time. Vacation days are going unused all the time.
Yeah.
And leaders are not supporting this at all.
Yeah. And yeah, I had the same, bordering on anger, actually, it's beyond cynicism.
What are you talking about?
But it says, we also know the value of protected time. And when we take time off together, we can support each other to fully unplug and recharge. Right.
Yeah.
And so their answer to that, in addition to everything that you said, is that we're adding an additional week-long firm-wide shutdown, giving our people 2 shutdowns a year, the first in July and the second in December, making sure all time off is protected, uninterrupted, and that no vacation days go unused. So, I saw a different version of a similar statement. And I was like, this is fucked up, man. Because, like, first of all, is the only way that you can, create uninterrupted time for work or rest or planning or whatever, to shut down the entire firm. Like, so first of all, we shut down the firm, and around the holidays, and stuff like that. So it's not like that I'm against that, but it also seems to kind of cover over the fact that, most organizations are, besieged by interruptions, all the time. And people can't go on vacation because their, email continues to spin out of control while they're gone, and it creates more work while they're gone, and et cetera, et cetera. So it seems like if we're really talking about employee experience, and we're really talking about the work experience component of employee experience, that there'd be more thought to creating uninterrupted time in the flow of work, as opposed to the only way we're going to be able to do this is to shut the whole damn thing down. And then you're going to get a whole week of it, Or
be thoughtful about, I mean, are we really like saying like basically lots of people are just going to be taking those 2 weeks off per year because you have no process for supporting people for taking that off, moving the load, in some way, managing that payoff. Like and again, we're not obviously seeing behind the curtain here, but just knowing the culture of those places, of like accounting firms, and like knowing that that's embedded and ingrained there. Mm-hmm. It needs there's not a lot of thud in how they're like at least talking about this, which makes me think it might even be worse than what they're alluding to. And I'm sure like the folks on Reddit would be happy to tell you about that.
Yeah, the Redditors have something to say about that. Well, and that's just well-being. So we've got these other 3 pillars, total rewards. We will continue to evolve our benefits to meet the needs of our people so they have options for every stage of life to support their physical and mental health, financial, social, spiritual, emotional well-being. So, this is well-being, right?
Yep.
And they've got it framed under total rewards. This could sound like a wonky kind of geeky thing of, me saying, well, that's, they've got things mislabeled, but this is super important. From the perspective that benefits in large organizations, well-being right now is mostly located under benefits, which is located under total rewards, which is half compensation, half benefits. And that's part of this, like, kind of centralized mothership HR approach to large companies. And they have business partners that flow back and forth. But we all know that and I'm sorry for anyone who is in benefits or, total rewards or well-being on the corporate side as I'm saying this, because I know that you feel this frustration too. But that organization is underfunded and under-influenced, meaning that the amount of influence that the benefits group who's in control of well-being is able to exert on the horizontal employee experience initiatives inside an organization is very, very low.
Yes.
They take a second chair to anyone in talent, anyone in, other parts of HR. So the fact that they would look at something like physical and mental health, not put it under well-being, but put it under total rewards, to me speaks to this is going to be more of the same, right? Does this mean they bought, like Virgin, Pulse or something? And that's going to be part of their $3.2 billion investment. So I don't know. I kind of saw a step back in the total rewards part.
Yeah, it's a weird way to put it for sure, because I mean, they also talk about, mental health support here as well, which they're expanding the number of free visits from 6 to 12 visits, which I mean, when I've gone to therapy and when other people I know have done that, 12 visits is like the starting point for for therapy, right? I mean, like it's, and not to say it's one size fits all, but it's yeah, it's just I don't know, it's a real weird way to put it. And I think you hit it on the head. It's just, you know, their categorization may seem wonky to like just like pick on it, but like it's clear they're thinking about this as like, this is part of the compensation and total rewards that we offer our employees. And I think, you know, for a company of PwC size, mental health is not. I don't think you asking your employees, is that part of your compensation package? I think they're like, I guess technically, but it's it's also part of like actually being able to come to work and function on a day-to-day basis. So much closer to like my well-being.
Yeah, you know, it's is what you're implying that maybe PwC is looking at this as a form of monetary compensation instead of, that's, I hadn't thought about that, but you're absolutely right. I was really fixated on the number because, you know, like when I'm in bad shape, you know, I'm going to the therapist twice a week, you know, so I would burn this up in, you know, 6 weeks. And to me, it kind of had the feeling of, okay, you know, opening a monthly bread line in the middle of a famine, you know, it's like this is a mental health famine right now. And basically, you know, this schedule would allow people to go to, you know, a therapist once a month. And so it seems out of step with, you know, I think a generally accepted modality of mental health, which is, you know, talk therapy and, you know, multiple forms of mental health are good and should be pursued on a consistent basis. This certainly doesn't seem to send the signal that you should be pursuing your mental health. And we want to make sure that there are no obstacles to that. You know, something that actually encourages people instead of this notion that's like, oh, well, okay, that's, you know, X thousands of dollars that I don't have to spend on stuff that I'm already, you know, spending it on. At least I get to, you know, deduct 12 visits or something like that. So it seemed like a little paltry to me.
Yeah, I agree. And then, I mean, from there, it really goes downhill quick.
Yeah, it really does.
I mean, like when you go to like employee development, it's just like one of the funniest things they did as part of this is they launched an inclusive mindset badge for everyone at the firm to build on their inclusive leadership skills, which I fully agree with, like that approach. The badge is like just the sort of cringe, perfect bait for the Reddit crowd, the Twitter crowd, I think, because it's just like, what, we're not gonna learn an inclusive mindset. You don't get a badge, and then like, what happens if you don't show an inclusive mindset? You get to like flash the badge. No, I took the class. See, I'm good. We're good.
It sounds like a very exclusive group.
I just don't understand it.
What the hell do they mean by this?
I don't know.
What is an inclusive mindset badge?
I have no idea. And like, it's like this sort of stuff, talking about like bringing in external speakers, skill building, emphasizing the human dimensions of leadership. It's like, oh, holy shit, you guys weren't doing this before. Okay, well, it's kind of back to square one. We're to square one.
Yeah, a lot of this sounds like they just took their engagement survey and then like put in the weakest ass, like, you know, solution for things that people were complaining about. Like, oh, I need leadership development opportunities.
Yep.
Great. We're going to occasionally bring in outside speakers.
That's it.
Yeah. And I will also say that they in the announcement, they kind of get to a counterpoint deeper in the document. But, you know, development from an employee experience perspective shouldn't all be about doing your job better, like the job that you have right now. And I think it's a significant and important increase to say it's about your career inside an organization. But if you really care about employee experience, then you're investing in people, whether they're going to use that inside your organization or someone else's, because that's the kind of stuff that creates a fulfilling relationship, you know, between an individual and a company. You know, a lot of people want to pursue things that are beyond the interest of their current position, or, you know, maybe not even directly usable within the context of services provided by the current company, but they're the things that keep people engaged and attracted to, working for a certain company.
Yeah, for sure.
So this feels like it, it's very focused on how can we make you better at your jobs, but make you feel like it's a benefit,
Don't get us sued. So please take this diversity course that we won't call a diversity course.
Yeah. And then always a PwCer. Our people feel an unwavering connection to the firm even after they leave. We will invest in the incredible community of individuals who have spent a portion of their career at PwC so we can continue to build relationships with them and offer resources throughout their career. In the spirit of choice, we are committed to helping our people pursue professional paths that excite them and support their well-being, development, sense of purpose, and ambitions, whether that's inside or outside our firm. So what are they doing?
They're still figuring that out. I mean, I'm a big fan of alumni program, and I mean, I know we've had some boomerang employees, me included, on that thing. So I mean, like, I'm a big believer in that, but like, it's not this.
No.
And
no, this to me reads like a job board for people who used to work at the company.
Maybe. I don't even know if I see that. It's like, it's sort of development. It's kind of like actually what you were talking about, the development. Like, okay, we'll give you resources to pursue the job you want to have, even if it's not here. But like, it's very not specific, which makes me think it's probably vaporware.
Yeah,
at this point, like corporate vaporware. So,
well, one thing for sure, they're going to put a lot of money into it.
They're going to put some money into it. I mean, I think so I think there's one thing to take away to do is just, I mean, I think we've talked about before, is just all like the way you account for these things, the way you talk about like how much they cost, is just, I'm not going to say it's voodoo economics, like George H.W. Bush did, but like spending on a company shutdown for a week in July. Like, it's just, it's definitely, that's probably one of the big investments they're making from just a dollar's perspective. Right. I mean, like, that's probably a huge cost, but, I think it does ignore some of the things that, a shutdown or like time off, gives your organization too, the people within the organization too, that aren't reflected in the productivity, the engagement, the retention you get from offering those sorts of programs. So I'm curious, like, it's just, you're obviously a little bit more well-versed in sort of the math of this stuff, especially how executives think about it. I'm curious to hear how you just sort of, think about the economics of this.
Well, I mean, you bring up some interesting points. So, one of the things that, kind of caught my eye immediately in this number was like, and you just said it, you shut down the firm for, 2 weeks. How does an accounting firm think about that? And is that included in the price tag here? Because if I'm looking at it from, kind of a shareholder experience perspective, I'm saying, okay, we're going to shut down the firm. This goes into the budget. Okay, we've got 60,000 employees, right? And that's 5 days of work. And, let's say that on average it's, $2,000 a day billable rate, right? And then you kind of do all that math, and that comes out to $600 million a year. So one very, skeptical, cynical view of this is that, you take 600 million, you multiply it by 3, and that is 1.8 billion. That $1.8 billion of this is really just in shutting down the firm. And it's not, investment out of pocket in, it's more the, quantification of how many billable hours are not going to be, delivered during those periods. So, that caused me, because if you look at, like, that's a very concrete thing. We're going to shut down the firm for two weeks. Everything else is kind of like not very concrete in here around what's going to happen. So
take your time off.
Yeah, it did cause me to wonder if like the big headline here is, hey, you're going to get 2 guaranteed weeks off a year.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. Here's my, kind of big read, setting aside all the positives that this is, really contributes to the conversation, that it's going to exert a lot of pressure out in the marketplace for other people to follow suit. I think all that's really great. I think that this is a misinterpretation of what employee experience is. I think it doesn't say anything about, the employer brand. It doesn't say anything about recruitment marketing. It doesn't say anything about the candidate experience. It focuses heavily on the work experience and not very much on employee success. And so a lot of the things that are mentioned here that should be under the employee success context, like well-being and stuff like that, it's not how you're doing your work. It's how you bring yourself to work, but also feel like you have a fulfilling life and a fulfilling job, et cetera, have really been kind of artificially adapted to the work experience instead. So they don't have the full effect of like, authentic employee success initiatives. They feel more like, this is how we can make people more productive, as opposed to helping them. So I think that it's a very myopic view of employee experience. So for that reason, I kind of wish they'd used a different phrase because this is not employee experience. This is really work experience, which is one subdomain of employee experience.
Well, do you want to talk a little bit? So I don't know if we've talked about it in great detail, but just thinking about the framework that we think about this, because I think you're right. I mean, I think we think more expansively about EX than I think a lot of folks do out there. I'm excited that the EX phrase is out there, that like a big company that's very numbers focused like PwC is into it. But to your point, it's kind of a misdefinition, or they're calling it employee experience when they're really only capturing one part of, I think, many aspects of employee experience here.
Yeah. So we've got a model, and we created a model that was largely based on the customer experience model, because, it's probably 20 years ahead of the employee experience model. And, there were some real code words in here about consumer grade technology experience and stuff like that are references to the CX. And so a lot of, really good ideas can be pulled from CX into EX once you kind of fully embrace that. But, we saw that there was a huge lack of clarity and understanding around what a simple definition of employee experience is, and also what a strategic framework is for having an impact on employee experience. And so, for us, employee experience, just to keep it real simple, is the perception that people have about the quality of time spent engaging with a company. And that's it. It's, did they feel like that was time well spent, or did they feel like it was a waste of their time or negative time? Yeah. And that can include the time that they spent thinking about a company or evaluating job opportunities or going through the candidate experience or actually working, at the role that they earned. Or one of the key differentiations for us is the differentiation between work experience and employee success, which I can talk about in a minute. But just that very simple definition of employee experience is something that's so, my question, with that definition in mind is, will a PwCer, feel like the quality of their time invested with this company is going to be a whole lot better because of what has been announced in this $2.3 billion package. And my knee-jerk reaction is no, that, they've got a lot of people. This is a lot of money, but it's spread across, a whole bunch of people and, very focused on a limited number of initiatives. And so I don't know that it's going to move the needle on people's perception of the quality of the time that they have spent with the company. What do you think?
No, I mean, not broadly. I think it's a good step. I think one of the things that one of the good things I think we can maybe take away from this, especially looking at it from maybe, if I was thinking about PwC as an executive, for example, and thinking about like, if I'm a big believer in this, I believe we've got, room to grow. Does this help sort of, push the appetite for, some of these programs? Like when you realize, you don't have to, when you realize you don't have to work 70 hours a week, to succeed at PwC, if that change happens. I still think that's a big if, because culture drive, I don't see any like big shifts in culture drive here.
Yeah.
So like that's a huge issue that's still out there. That's to be addressed. But I think putting some appetite up there, putting some, sugar in the water, sort of thing is good. I mean, I think, and I think it should probably give, I think for people that do feel really comfortable, at PwC today and happy with their work experience, which I think there's probably quite a few there, that are, they probably feel pretty good about that because they were already invested. For people that were skeptics, I don't think this changes very much. I think when you look at like how they actually operate, and how they operationalize this, which I think is, this is a great marketing piece. I actually love how they just went out and announced this and spent a lot of time and, put their chief of U.S. operations, basically the CEO of their U.S. operations, out in front of this announcement. So I like that because you don't see that a lot of times with these sort of initiatives. But yeah, from an actual impact perspective, I think what the things they want to do, which is like retain people, keep people engaged, I don't think that's going to be a huge impact.
Yeah. No, my best interpretation of this is that it's a good step in the right direction. But there's a lot of steps to take, and that's my very positive view of it. Yeah. What I noticed, because our model, has a very simple definition of employee experience. It has a strategic framework that breaks employee experience down into 5 subdomains: employer brand, recruitment, marketing, candidate experience, work experience, and employee success. But one of the most important things about our model is that it dives into the notion of defining moments. That in each of these subdomains, you don't have to control for every moment, but there has to be something that is a defining moment, that stands out, and is elevated from the everyday, that makes someone say, the quality of my time spent with this company is really great. My life quality, my work experience, etc. And to me, there's a conspicuous lack of defining moments here. So
there's one.
Go ahead.
There's one, in my opinion.
Yeah, go for it.
That's expanding parental leave from 8 weeks to 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So like when we talk about like defining moments in the employee experience, like the work interruption for a very big life, and expanding that to all parents. Doing both those things, that's the one thing.
So
I don't see any other moments.
Is that something that someone would brag about to their friends at a cocktail party? I got 12 weeks off for parental leave.
I could say, I'm going to say it's probably along gender lines somewhat. I mean, like as a man who's had a kid, like any amount of, like I think I had 3 weeks here. It was very early, obviously, in our journey in EX, but I think I had 3 weeks. And that was amazing. Like nobody my age had careers where they could expect anything more than a couple days off. They were back to work.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember my dad telling me, like, why aren't you back at work already? I went back to work the day after you were born. Like, it's like, thanks so much. I think for, women who had a kid, I think there's a lot less there, right? I think 8 weeks is good. 12 weeks that much different than 8 weeks? Probably not. But, I think it's still better in a country where it's not standardized, where it's not mandated, and where it's still somewhat rare to get anything more than a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I think it's good, but but we're also like really picking at the one thing that I think actually makes an impact. Everything else here is kind of a, so what?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like, what I heard you say was that this could be a defining moment for men in the workforce.
Yes.
And, specifically men who take off time when their family grows. So that's even a smaller group of men inside the organization. So it seems like the impact, it has the potential to be a defining moment for some men in the company. But yeah, not a whole lot to, create a defining moment for women, based on what prevailing expectations are.
Yep.
Other than that, it's like, is it a defining moment for someone to say, oh yeah, I'm home for Christmas because PwC shuts down for a week during the holidays? Is that a defining moment?
Yeah. No,
I don't think so either.
A week off in July?
Yeah,
probably not.
Yeah. And, again, I'm not promoting the Star Conspiracy, though I've been known to do so. But, I would consider a true defining moment being our 3-day weekend. Like that's something that, people will talk about outside of like a work context. It's like, oh yeah, I work with a bunch of, great people and, we have a 3-day weekend every week.
Yeah.
Well, does that mean that you have to work 10 to 12 hours Monday through Thursday? Nope.
No.
Well, did they cut your pay? Nope. No. And then, you combine that with unlimited time off and, a bunch of the other benefits that we still have more benefits that we need to bring to our own employee experience.
Yeah.
At least we have, a defining moment that stands up, both in the context of what's needed in, the work environment today, but also compared to other organizations. And that's what a defining moment is. It's elevated from what you expect, right?
Yeah, and I was going to mention that too, because it's something that if you move an organization, if you move away from an organization, it should be something that's really painful to move away from. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of organizations, Netflix is like notorious on the compensation side for saying like, we are going to keep you in the top of compensation so that any job you take, if you leave our organization, you're going to get less pay. Yeah. And so you have to think really hard about that. But that's pay. I'm talking about like, things like that. Like when I walk my daughter to school every Friday, because that's part of our Friday off routine. I see some friends and they're like, what are you doing? And they're like, I'm walking my daughter to school. It's Friday. I'm off. They're like, oh, Fridays. And they're off to Starbucks and off to work, to do their thing. Yeah, it would change my life completely if I had to go to work 5 days a week. It would have to be something really, it would have to be something else life-changing, a different moment that would require that or that. So that's why I'm even hesitant to say like the parental leave thing is that, because I think there's so much already built in with if you're a top talent, you're going to get some time off for having a kid.
And that was kind of like, to kind of come back to the beginning, that was one of the general feelings I had about the whole thing is like, if this is viewed as progress, then we've got a long way to go.
We do.
Like if this thing is like, earth shattering to anyone, then we've got a long way to do because it's really not that impressive. It kind of like, for me, approaches a baseline of what the expectation should be. And then employers of choice should rise above this by a significant degree. But, I'm glad we're having the conversation.
Me too.
And, I'm glad that somebody out there is talking about it this way. And if I seemed, too negative or, persistently negative about this, I didn't mean to be, other than to just highlight that if this is the start of the conversation, then it's a good conversation to have. And we should be pushing on the boundaries of that conversation, because what I'd hate to happen is that this became the standard.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right. This is what a good employee experience looks like.
Yeah. Because this is not like, to your point earlier, this is not something that will like everyone's talking about compensation right now. Right.
Yeah.
And that is the number one reason why people, leave jobs. And I think that's a very nihilistic view. I think that when people have the perception that all jobs suck, so they might as well go get the sucky job that pays the most, that's when compensation rises to the top, right?
Yeah.
And this is has nothing to do with, should you offer a great employee experience as an alternative to great compensation? That doesn't fly either. But there has to be some recognition and consideration for the fact that people are not leaving because they can get 10% more pay at the next job. They're leaving because it's an easy job to leave. It's an easy company to leave.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I don't see anything here that makes it harder for people to leave PwC. And I don't see anything here that makes it more likely that someone's going to jump from their current job to come to PwC. So if their primary goal was to stem, turnover and to increase their talent pool, I don't think that they succeeded there, but I also think that's the wrong goal. If all of your employee experience stuff is, geared towards, simply keeping people employed, then I think that's the wrong goal and doesn't really get to the heart of what a great employee experience is. But hey,
I agree, man.
At least we're talking about them.
We're talking about it. It's getting coverage. I'm going to take the good. I'm going to take the good side of this. We've browbeat PwC enough. At least they could have just been not doing this stuff. So I applaud them for that. But I'm excited for. Hopefully that will spur a lot more conversations along these lines.
Yeah, same here. And I'll be interested to see how they fulfill these commitments over the coming 3 years. So let's talk again in a year about PwC.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's put a bookmark in it.
Yeah, we can take a deep dive into Reddit at that time.
That's right. That's always a scary place to go, though.
All right, man. Well, it's good talking to you.
You too, Brett. Good talking to you.
Let's get together next week.
Let's do it.